conversations and questions that the members may have. We have the very best within the team to respond to those. Winnie would be taking us through the presentation, but Winnie, maybe you could just say hi.
Good evening, everyone. Happy
Good
to be
evening to
here
you.
and looking forward to learning.
Thank you.
Thanks, Winnie. Daniel, I want to begin with some statistics that have been surveyed, and some of these are global statistics, given that we are in Kenya and our estate planning conversation is just picking up. Possibly the scenario may be a little bit aggravated for our scenario. So statistics say that 70% of all wealth transfers will fail at every generation. Meaning that, as Peter Washira, if I don't have the right knowledge and I don't make the proactive decisions to plan my estate, there's a very high likelihood, a 70% chance that the transition of the wealth from myself to the next generation will fail. Another statistic is that 80% of high net worth families say that their children are not prepared for inheritance. Meaning that we can do a lot, we can work very hard, we get all the financial knowledge that Daniel is helping us to get. Then our children have no idea if we are to leave that wealth to them on what to do with them. 80% of them say that their children are not prepared to receive inheritance. Then finally, which is also a bit of a paradox, that 75% of those high net worth individuals say that it is important to leave an inheritance. I mean, I remember at Radisson Blue, I quoted a scripture in Proverbs that says, a good man and a woman leaves an inheritance for his children's children. A lot of us are good men. We say that it's important to leave an inheritance. Yet, 80% of the population, the children are not ready to receive that inheritance. The other statistics that we discussed on what are the causes of failure in family wealth transition. The biggest cause continues to be breakdown in family trust and communication, followed very quickly by 25% inadequately prepared heirs. Remember, that is also coming up on, recipients of family wealth who are not prepared to receive that wealth. Then 12% failure to establish a family mission. And that probably may also be an aspect of, yes, there's estate planning, but beyond estate planning, there's the long-term vision that the family may want to establish. Then it's only about 3% where we talk about now structures, legal structures, investment structures, tax structures. And that's why you realized in our conversation at Radisson Blue, I started by building the context. And I remember that may have probably given us a lot of background. As Icea Lion, we are usually very deliberate to actually build that context very well, so that as we are empowering, any person that we interact with, we help them to understand the full contextual environment within which estate planning lies. Obviously, at the core of this environment is the conversation of structures, the estate planning solutions, the wills and trusts and powers of attorney, which are now the tools that you will use to plan for your estate and to plan for the transition. But you're usually very careful to actually help you understand that it's a holistic conversation. And one of the things that we can appreciate, Daniel, is that we enjoy to walk the journey with our partners and our clients, so that we can continue to build this knowledge, and we can continue to learn and also share our experiences with you on what families are doing, how families are addressing issues of, helping the heirs to actually pick up the knowledge, get to know what to do with the wealth, and also get to build the governance structures that will help to protect and preserve that wealth across the generation. And hopefully and prayerfully, our vision as a business is that we will establish a generation in our time that will lay that foundation for multi-generational wealth. So that as we are working very hard to lay the foundation for our family wealth structures, then that foundation becomes firm enough to flow across as many generations down the line as possible, so that we can truly establish that legacy that every one of us desires to establish. So I wanted to begin with that, Daniel, as I invite Winnie. Thank you very much for the many questions that you've shared with us. We will try to respond almost all of them and any that you may have. Winnie being the person on the ground dealing with families, very many families on a daily basis, we felt that she's the very best person to actually give you not just the theory, but the very practical experiences on estate planning, the journeys that we have gone with different clients. Obviously, there is absolute confidentiality. We would not mention any client that we have worked with, but we'll share the knowledge and the wealth of experiences that we have learned through our estate planning consultation and services. So, Daniel, if you allow me, I would wish to invite Winnie just to respond, to do a presentation in line with the questions that came through.
Thank you. That's okay. Now, Winnie, are you
So,
there?
yes, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm trying to
Okay.
pull up the
Let me
presentation.
make you a co-host. Let me
Yes.
make you
Oh, yeah. So I can see. Am I a co-host? Yes.
Yeah, you're a co-host. Yeah, go ahead.
So, how? I'm not seeing where to pull up the presentation.
You're not able to share?
Yeah.
And
me
made
see.
you the host, actually.
Yeah, I can see that, but on the share option.
Mhm.
Okay, good. Seen it. Seen it. We can see.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, just take your time. We'll sort it.
Can you see now?
Not yet.
Not yet. Do I try again? Oh, okay, good.
Okay, good, sorted.
We're good?
Yeah, that's very okay.
Good. All right. So I will not belabor the points that Peter and Monica had made before, but I'll do it more in a recap kind of fashion so that we can pick up the presentation with the questions that had been sent earlier. There were several that kind of mishmashed together, so I will answer them the way they are. If my slides are not moving, please let me know, right, Daniel? Or anyone else hosting. But welcome to this
Move the slides.
where
Let's see if they're moving.
they're moving.
Not really.
Okay. I've not moved. Can you see the second one?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is moving now.
Thank you very much.
That's okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So welcome everyone. Today we are in an art class, but we say estate planning is law of design. and designing your thoughts in a way that will speak ahead of you, speak into your future, speak into your children's lives, speak for you when you can't speak, right? And it's very important that you do estate planning earlier rather than later. You shouldn't leave it to be the thing you do on your deathbed, as was in the days past. It should be done as early as possible so that as you're making your investment decisions, as you're deciding who you're partnering up with, as you're deciding how many children to have, as maybe you're deciding an unfortunate separation, or maybe you're dealing with a death in a family, you have already made the plans beforehand. So protecting the people that we love is literally protecting them from trouble that can come from decisions that have been made or decisions that have been avoided. In dealing with estate planning, we look at the family from end to end. And I'm almost certain that when Peter was making his presentation, he discussed the family from the 5th generation going up. Yeah. Most of us can probably name our parents, our grandparents, but we can't name beyond our grandparents. Some of us are fortunate enough to meet our great-grandparents, but that being said, if you can tally what you have been given from your grandparents, and maybe at this point I should ask for hands to be raised and Daniel can pick up. If you have received anything, be it land, be it jewelry, be it household items, or money from a bank account, you've received it from your grandparents, it's streamed down to your parents, and now you're ready to give it to maybe your children or to anyone who you will learn is called your dependent, right? It takes a lot of intention and a lot of good intention, and also some adherence to some good value principles, like the ones that have been set down in the good book called the Bible, to have such intention. An intention to simply own, use, and pass down. That's the basic principle in life and the basic fundamentals of estate planning. So when you're establishing your family legacy, it's not an abstract concept that you're going to sit down with the most technical of human beings. Yes, you might need a technical lead in the form of a lawyer or a trust consultant to walk you through it, but it simply starts in your mind. You plant the seed, you tell yourself, I need to be better organized than what I saw from my parents or what I saw from my senior relatives. I need to be better planned. I don't want it to be a question of how do we bury this person? I want it to be I'm very clear, this is the way they want it to be buried. Any fool can make a fortune, but it takes a man of brains to hold on to it. Holding on to your wealth doesn't mean you die with it. It doesn't mean you get buried and people throw cash. No, we've seen such spectacles in some funerals that have been aired in our media agencies. We've seen how funerals have been dramatized. Sometimes we've been part of the funeral attendants where you feel, I think this is a bit extravagant, or you feel that maybe more should have been done at that moment in time. But it doesn't mean you get buried with all the contents that you have or that you have acquired through your lifetime. You get buried with dignity, you die well, and as you plan to die well, you also learn to live honorably, right? The estate planning concept that Vanderbilt had in his heart was to make sure he can carry forward his wealth from generation to generation. But some mistakes were made along the way. And one of the few mistakes that the Vanderbilts did, and I'm hoping some of us have heard of the Vanderbilts, there are very few who are still wealthy in this generation, but they had a few mistakes. Only a simple will was written. There was very poor planning around the distribution of the assets. Cornelius Vanderbilt was one of the greatest and richest men in the 1900s. He was one of the wealthiest people. I mean, he was the Elon Musk of the day. And to hear that Elon Musk would lose his wealth in 50 years is inconceivable. We can't think of such an event because you imagine that he has earned his wealth so well, he knows how to keep it and pass it down to his children and his children's children. We actually live by the jokes of the day that say, I wish I were born to be Elon Musk's child, or maybe I was Bill Gates' niece or nephew, or someone who's going to benefit from a part of his estate. Vanderbilt was that person. But what he saw fit in that day and age was to write a will. Unfortunately for his family was when the distribution of the wealth came down. And the wealth at that point in time, valued today, would be billions of dollars. Currently, the only great grandchild who lives only is worth $1 million, which is tiny considering how much wealth they were able to inherit. There was a lot of depletion in the distribution. There was a lot of mismanagement because a lot of the children received mountains of wealth they could not keep, they had not dealt with, so they didn't know how to manage it. They spent and had lavish parties. They were buying luxury items, luxury real estate, not able to sustain it at all. They were not giving back in the same way the Vanderbilt patriarch was giving back. I hope that some of us have heard that Vanderbilt had a school, still has a school, but it's not as big as the Ivy League schools that we know and hear of every day. And there was clearly some lack of planning. When you flip the script and see the Rockefellers, if you are in this class where I've had you do a lot of financial advisory, financial education, if you are part of the crew that invests in global funds, whether it's S&P 100, you want to invest in Vanguard, you want to invest in, anything, blockchain, crypto, name it, the Rockefellers are part of it. Part of the Rockefellers is the people who mint the American dollar. They own most of the global funds through Vanguard and other entities. They grew their wealth amazingly, right? Rockefeller and Vanderbilt lived in the same day and age. They were there together. One built the railroad, one built the coal industry, and they were working together as the tycoons of the day, the rich of the rich of that day, worthy of being Forbes 100, top 40 over 40 in Kenya, anything, you name it. But the Rockefellers did one amazing thing. They established a trust. In establishing a trust, they learned when you do that, you make sure your family understands how to govern it. The family understands how to give back to society. The family understands how to continue growing and to grow into a big, amazing oak tree that will always provide shelter, will always provide income, will always provide something back to the children who name themselves Rockefeller. So whether you've been born into the Rockefeller family or you've been married into the Rockefeller family, you have enjoyed the sheer wealth that was created more than 150 years ago. So when we flip the script again and we come home, the biggest displays in our newspapers, especially in the last 15 years, where we've seen a lot of billionaires and millionaires passing away, has been disruption. What kind of disruption? People are taking each other to court, sibling versus sibling, parent versus child, child versus their own grandchild of a different relative. Basically, kin to kin, they are fighting. So they take their arms and their guns to court and they decide, no, I want to be a part of this. The most famous, I think, in the recent past is our late president, the longest serving president of this country. His family is literally on the battlefield in court. They are fighting tooth and nail to make sure they are considered to be receiving income from his estate. Yes, he had set up a trust. Yes, he wrote a will, but there was very basic instructions that were left. There was no proper planning. So there's a lot of wealth that has gone into wastage because if you can't give it to someone, you can't use it. And by the legal sanctions that we have, if you use it, it's a crime, and therefore you can be arrested and be jailed just for using a deceased person's wealth. So we see tussles among billionaires, but we also see literal day-to-day families fighting, leaving their mothers in poverty, leaving the children of their deceased siblings in poverty, just to fight for land. Kenyans are very emotional about land. We are also very emotional about where we put our coin. I believe that if I pay 50 shillings for something, I should get the value of that 50 shillings. And the more the currency, the higher the currency, the more I demand from it. So imagine where you sit in your home, you didn't know how your father and your mother acquired it, but now you have come of age, you have understood the real estate industry, you have understood how to make money, and you can see the value. You almost have the dollar sign in your eyes, looking at that prime apartment sitting in Lavington where you grew up, but you did not have the concept of how much this house was worth. Now you're seeing it. You're seeing how apartment blocks are mushrooming everywhere. You're seeing how Airbnbs are being curated and making millions in profit every month. And you can only but hope to get a piece of that wealth to do more for yourself. How many people think like that? How many siblings do you have in your family? Do they also think like that? If they do think like that, then you are in trouble, and you are bound to run into trouble whether or not you plan to do so, okay? So the risk in whether you're going to get a family together is in how they talk. Do they talk to one another? Do they have money conversations? Do they even borrow from each other? Or is it a borrowing where someone will decide they will not pick your call next time because you're a beggar, air quotes, or they decide you've become a burden, and because you're a burden, we don't want to talk to you. Or they decide you decided to have more children than me. I don't have kids. Why should I be planted with your burdens for choices I didn't make? Okay. So all those form part of breakdown of family communication. Inadequate preparedness just stems from the people who came before you. Did they talk to you about what they own? Did they talk to you about how they own it? For instance, some people don't have title documents. Maybe their parents bought property 40, 50 years ago. You've never seen them talking about a title. And maybe you're just saying, they'll plan themselves. No, they need you to help them plan around it. Failing to establish a family mission is simply just not understanding whether your family will be together 20 years from now. You have children, you want them to have siblings, but you've not set down the roadmap for them to be united. Yeah. Even Jesus Christ came with a roadmap and said, I am the bridge between you and God the Father, and has pointed everybody in that direction. Without a roadmap, you have basically failed, and you've failed to plan in that aspect, and your family is waiting to meet the chaos down the road. The last and least of all the considerations that we make is that you've not been given proper advice. If you're not able to talk to one another, and you're not able to prepare your children forward, and you don't even know what your family mission is, you're basically coasting through life, then you won't know where to look. But lucky for you, you're in this engagement this evening. You've taken your time from your busy evenings, and you've settled down to hear, how can I do it differently? And that is a choice of wisdom. The choice of wisdom is choosing how to create for yourself. Family systems, I don't want to repeat too much, but a family system is basically that, building your mission together. Why do we own what we own? Who do we own it for? How do we use it? And how can it be used for time immemorial? If it's not going to be benefiting me to live in it, can I sell it and it continues benefiting me in one way or another? If I teach my child at 7 years to save, will he be able to invest at 15? Will they be able to consider buying real estate at 25? We don't want the next generation to be on the streets like the Gen Zs. We don't want Gen Alpha, Gen Beta to be on the streets in 20 years from today, because they don't have a way to go. They don't have a place to rest. They don't have a stepping stool. We want the Gen Zs to be the end of us fighting the system, but making better decisions going forward so that they meet a different kind of system. Systems are built from conception, not at maturity. So because the Gen Zs are here and they're trying to make a difference, we can help them make a difference by making it better for the alphas and the betas and all the others who will come after them. Okay, so creating a family system is just that. Be intentional about the kind of property you want to buy, the kind of investments you want to make. You want to buy a government bond just because it's tax-free, but do you truly understand whether that tax-free is going to be beneficial in 15 years? The coupon could be 40,000. In 15 years, that 40,000 will have dwindled out into inflation. Are you making another plan to increase that particular aspect? All that forms part of your family system. Your family system. Who am I? Who belongs to me? What belongs to me? How do we use it? And how do we make sure we always get the added advantage because we have it and we have each other? So that is a system of building generational wealth. We are building a community that will know that they will forever have a home, or they will always have a way out. You don't want your child to suffer. I mean, I personally do not subscribe to my children need to work harder than me. No, I worked hard, but I did not work as hard as my grandparents. They had to toil. They had to toil hard ground. I've had to toil with my mind. I would like my children to expand their minds and expand their territories. Creating generational wealth is literally estate planning. Estate planning is not for the wealthy, it's not for the ill, it's not for those ones who have been confined in their beds, it's not for the terminally sick, it is basically for the healthiest person in their youngest age. If they can make that decision just to protect the people who they will touch in their lifetime, they have built a plan. Administering your estate, and not to sound morbid, if you were to not wake up tomorrow, how would the people you live with wake up? Would they wake up with fear? Would they build anxiety around themselves? Would they know exactly what to do? You know we need to call uncle so-and-so, auntie so-and-so. This is the person who needs to go and collect this and this document. This is the person who needs to go and plan for the burial site. Do they know what to do? Or can you simply give them a guide? Give them a guide that will show them, this is how I want things to run. The same way you would plan a menu for your food, and you also plan a schedule for your vacation. Maybe you even plan out your weekends and how you're going to host different people, or you plan out events that you're going to attend, friends that you're going to invest with. All that is forming part of the plan of what you own in your lifetime and how it will be used or how it will help someone out after you're gone. This is centered and truly founded on the law, because the Constitution of Kenya gives us the right to own anything in this land. We are free as citizens to use the law to our advantage. Because there's information in the legal context, you can always use it to your advantage. Buy real estate, always understand their land laws are going to be there. The Income Tax Act is not here to punish us. It's here to help us. Much as the tax use can be controversial, we do pay taxes for a certain reason. So it's good to understand, if I do this, will I be impacted around taxes? And most of all, if we're talking about succession and we're talking about creating plans, we also have legal rules around it. How your succession will be dealt with if you do not make a plan, or if you do make a plan, how you're supposed to structure yourself. There was a question that I saw that had someone asking whether you can put something in your estate plan. And I'm going to say that a majority, if not 100% of these questions were about trusts. Trusts being maybe the most 21st century question. They have existed for years and years. They have been used in other parts of the world for decades, but in Kenya, they're just coming to life. They're coming to life because Kenyans are waking up from their slumber. So the question that I saw here was, is it just to hold assets or to manage growth where applicable? And I want to tie that question to, do you actually know what your assets are? Do you consider yourself valuable because you own a car? Or do you consider yourself valuable because you own a home? Do you consider an asset the phone that you're holding? Maybe you have a gadget, a MacBook that you'd like to insure, or you own some photography tools, or you've bought into liquid funds. Maybe let's call them financial instruments. You've bought into money market funds, fixed income funds, crypto, and the like. All that forms part of your assets. And beyond, you are an asset in and of yourself. Your home, your cars are definitely your asset. Your family, whether it's your children, it's your parents, it's your siblings, the family that you come from. And I would hope that you have someone that you take care of, whether you're paying their bills or you're helping them through schooling, you have someone that you're taking care of that you consider family. You have cash in your bank account. Some people have cash in their M-Pesa, in their M-Shwari, in their Loop accounts. There are so many mobile money wallets today. you have household valuables, you have things that maybe you've crafted, there's cultural renaissance, you've bought into traditional attire, you have valuables in your home. You maybe run a business or two, whether it's a digital business, a virtual business, it's an actual business where you have a shop that sells products, or you have an office where you sell services like the one we have. You have that as a business and it forms part of your asset base. And of course, the glowing tribute among Kenyan families is land, real estate. And land has morphed into very different things. Like we have seen REITs coming along very well. We have seen apartments being bought left, right, and center. People are no longer running to buy vacant land. We've seen long-term leases that you'll do agriculture somewhere and you say that this is something I'm doing for the next 25 years. That's still an asset seated on land, okay? All that forms part of your estate. All of those are assets that you can manage through an estate plan. And that I dare say you should find a way to have all of them be dealt with by you or by a shadow that you're willing to create. We will see what the shadow looks like. You can plan and you can fail to plan. All those are options. Maybe you don't get the opportunity to sit down and actually make your plan and you don't wake up tomorrow. Touch wood, that does not happen. But if you don't live to see tomorrow, you don't live to see the end of the week, or you don't live to see your plan come to fruition, it will go into intestate succession. And intestate succession just means there's no will, or your will was invalidated for one reason or another. But succession can also be handled in a very tested way. Tested means I gave a testament to how I want things done. And by law, you're called the testator. So testate succession is handled in court where you gave instructions by way of a will, and this will be honored and executed the way you wanted. So it will go through the probate process. And you can also veer off completely from succession and set up a family trust where you will protect your assets from people who may come after you in your lifetime and in your passing away, or you minimize the taxes that will be impacting yourself, your family, or the people who come from you. So the people who stem from you, and you preserve your wealth because they don't have to move everywhere. You only have an acre of land, for instance. Maybe you have 3 children. You don't want them to each have a third. You want them to maintain the 1 acre. Maybe it's more valuable as it is, or you can't subdivide beyond that because of certain regulations. You can simply set up that as a plan and avoid succession altogether. Yeah. In long and short, we have tools for you to avoid the probate process or to avoid the intestate process. Intestacy is what we're moving away from, and we're moving into points of wisdom. The tools that we have available, where now you've come to the 3% and you're seeking legal advice. The tools that you have available are very simple. There's a will, there's a trust, there's powers of attorney, and there's healthcare directives. It can't be more straightforward than that. If I fall ill today, please do not put me in a coma. Please do not place a burden on yourselves to handle me at ICU for more than a month. Please do not put a burden on my children. That financial burden is too great. Or I do not have medical insurance. Please make sure I am not hospitalized at a certain base of hospital. All that is a medical directive. Delegating decision-making is also a fairly old concept. It might be risky, but again, we're teaching the art of trust, and we're also teaching the art of trusting with wisdom. You can pass on a power of attorney, but a power of attorney, 1, is revoked when you pass away. 2, the power of attorney in and of itself can be removed by an action that someone has made. Maybe they have gone against the instruction, or their time has come. You said it should expire after a certain period, and it expires, and that person cannot use that power again. Powers of attorney are easy to make, but they're also quite complex to navigate because the attorney themselves needs to understand what powers they have. Are they allowed to sign your bank information, or they're simply allowed to sign contracts, or they're simply allowed to sign the hospital requirements for you to undergo a certain treatment? You need to be very keen when you're making a power of attorney, and you need to alert that person because they receive that power immediately you grant it. Okay. Trusts are also an easy way to simply distribute your assets or gather. I call it a pot of gold. So when you tell your child there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, you can simply refer to the family trust, where you put all the things that you are investing. You can continue investing in it through the trust and then allow it to distribute to your children, or that they can receive income from your investments forever and ever. They will perpetually sit on that pot of gold until they are ready to sell it, or they're ready to add more gold to themselves, building what we call the Rockefeller type of foundation. Then all that is the central goal of estate planning, meaning you've managed yourself as an asset by giving a health care directive. You managed the people that you want to give instructions. You've managed what you own, and you've given an instruction. So giving an instruction in the form of writing a will should be mandatory. I know in parts of Europe, it is mandatory to write a will before you open a bank account, because the question they have is, if you leave us these sterling pounds or you leave us these euros in your bank account, who can we give it to? We don't want to get stuck with it forever. We're not going to hold on to it forever. Please write a will, register it with us, and we will make sure that if anything happens to you or we hear of your sudden demise, we will honor you by distributing this according to your will. And it should be as mandatory as that. But Kenya is only growing into that. We're still young in estate planning, but it doesn't mean the decision is not available. It is very available. You can simply instruct your bank, instruct your investment manager that this is how I want things done, and they will have to follow the due process instead of sharing information to any person available. Because this discussion was very heavily centered on wills and trusts, I want us to know that wills are anything and everything you can imagine to write down that can be read after you're gone. Okay, so even if you sit down today and you grab a piece of paper and start writing a letter, or you write your instructions or your wishes to someone, that will be considered a will. For it to pass in court as a valid document for distributing assets, that will needs to satisfy certain criteria. It can be a will. It can be a will that I, Winnie, have decided I don't want this phone to be sold because it has photos and it has this, and I want my children to always have this phone until it dies on its own. That's a will, okay? But what satisfies the fact that it's a will? One, that I have written it, whether it's by typing out or handwriting it, or two, and sorry, not or, I have written it and I have signed it. Okay, I must sign my will, and I must sign my will. Moreover, I will have to date it so that in case tomorrow I wake up re-inspired to write something again, I date it, and the latest in date will be the one that will be the most acceptable. Okay. Then beyond that, the law of succession demands that more than just writing and signing your will, we know that it's you, and maybe we know your handwriting, and we can go through the DCI handwriting check to confirm that it is by your hand and by your force, and by that nature of how they confirm the validity of your handwriting. You must have a witness bearing that witness aspect. You must have someone watching you sign your will. There must be at least two people, yeah? Those two people should not be benefiting from your will in any way. They must give you their contact information, just in case someone comes challenging the will or the contents of the will. That person will be there, ready and able to say, I was there, they were writing their will, they signed it, and I confirmed that they signed it. And beyond that, they must also sign against your signature. Because in this day and age of evidence, it's very important that as you're making your will, you have someone who is clear, they're not under any influence, they're not being coerced to be there, who is clear that you are making a will and they want to participate in witnessing such a momentous moment for you, okay? So that aspect of a will is what makes the will valid. We will not discuss oral wills because I trust and believe that no one here wants to make an oral will. Oral wills are very hard to validate because the person who speaks them is not there to bear witness for themselves. the people who are spoken to must remember the same thing, all of them, and the person who spoke to them must have died within 3 months. Okay, so unless you know that something could happen to you at some point, it's important for you to simply write down your thoughts, write down your instructions, whether it is a way of you releasing your thoughts to the people you love, but also make sure it is signed and make sure it is witnessed by at least 2 people. I think that is very clear in my explanation. This is just to cement it in your mind that now you understand the difference between an oral will and a written will. We move on to examples and illustrations. And if anyone here is an ardent watcher of television, I think millennials grew up without screens, but we've become quite famous for being screen attached. Screen attached, whether it's your phone, your iPad, your laptop, your TV, whatever gadget you use. And Netflix, much as it does not garner so many views, has a show that clearly depicts the freedom of making a will, the wishes that you can write, how you can write them, and how they will be honored. Yeah. So the freedom of the person making the will is usually called testamentary freedom. I am free, able, and willing to write this, and whatever I write must be honored. So in the making of this show that is called The Gentleman, the person writing the will had already lived in a life where hierarchy was maintained in siblings. So the person who inherited from the will was a sibling who was not the firstborn son. And it was almost unbelievable that he was taking over from his own father, yet there was a lineage, there was a rule that would follow, that would make the patriarchs follow the line of birth. So the firstborn will be the first one to be named in the will, and then consequently others can get if the firstborn is willing. So in this particular show, it's very interesting how the person wrote their will, they named their lastborn son, and their lastborn son had to come and take over his entire empire. And, you know, much of it is dramatic, but it's very clear that he made the will, he named the beneficiaries properly, he had witnesses, and his lawyer read the will and had to honor it the way that he made it. We look at the second tool that is I dare say more superior. And this is what we call a family trust. A family trust is simply an umbrella that can hold you and the family that you have in a bucket or a pot of gold, as I mentioned. It can hold you in your family and make sure that nobody can come against you unless you invite them. Okay. So it's by invitation only. And by virtue of being the settler, you will understand that you can make both. You can write a will and you can create a trust. But there was that other question, why a will? Why a trust? Why not a will? Why should I create a trust? Why not just simply write a will and make sure my wishes are left as instructions? We've seen from the Rockefeller and the Vanderbilt community, we've seen how it can simply distribute. A will just distributes or says, this is what I want you to get, and that's that. Yeah, it's basically your dying wish. No one can unspeak it, and no one can amend it. Maybe invalidate it if they can prove that you didn't make it very well. A trust, on the other hand, is established as soon as you create it. It offers you protection from the get-go. It avoids the whole succession process. So you don't really have to go to court. Going to court is a process of succession, right? You can either go through the probate process of when you write a will or go through the intestate process. Here, we're here in this class knowing we are choosing one in the testate succession, not intestate. We're not going to die intestate. We're going to leave some form of instruction. But for you to choose the kind of instruction you want to leave, the idea of creating a trust allows you to bypass a lot of the court process that hampers estate distribution or kind of publicizes it in a not so dignifying manner. Again, trusts don't have to be split. They don't have to be distributed. It just ensures continuity. A will is only active when you pass away. It cannot be activated by anything else. It can only come to life when you pass away, unlike a trust. And of course, for the will, it requires to go to court, and it offers very limited protection, because should anybody challenge your will, they may win. You will not be there to defend yourself. They may win that argument in the court of the day, depending on the biases that the judges face or that the courtrooms have and the society of the day carries towards writing of wills. It's very easy to challenge a will today. Maybe it will be difficult in 30 years when we learn to write better wills. But for now, in this day and age, it's quite easy to challenge a will. And I dare say also a little bit easy to win, to win your argument. Let's look at a trust. And I don't want to, let me start with this first so that we can go back to the types of trusts that we set up. A trust is founded by the person we call the settler. Remember, in a will, it's a testator, the person who gives a testament of how they want their things to be done. A settler is a person who gives an asset into a trust and establishes it. Okay, so if I want to build a house, I must give it a design and then buy the stones and the sand and the cement to build it. So I'm the designer and I'm the builder of this house. So I'm the builder of this trust. I place a trustee. I put a trustee in charge of the trust itself, and I make sure that they will be honorable. I can be a trustee myself. I've seen one of the questions asking who the settler becomes in a trust. A settler can become a trustee in their own trust. That is completely allowable. Then I set up beneficiaries and I say, by the way, I'm not just creating this trust, I'm making this trust so that you can protect the following people. The settler themselves can become a beneficiary in their own trust, okay? The only restriction is that the settler cannot be the only beneficiary in their trust. They can be a beneficiary, but they should not be the only beneficiary in their trust. Then the settler goes ahead and says, look, I've given you the trustee. This is the person managing. I've given you the beneficiaries. These are the people who will be taken care of in this trust. Here is the property. The property that can go into the trust is virtually anything that a human being can own. You can own anything in a trust, whether it's a bank account, whether it's a company, whether it is stock, whether it is bonds, it is bills. A trust is a person, a legal person that can own virtually anything you can. The way you do that, the way you set up, this is the how, is by creating the trust deed and rules. The trust deed is what now gives the instructions. Remember, a will gives instructions to a person who will receive them when you pass away. The trust deed gives instructions while you're still here. You tell them, this is how I want you to govern. If you want to change your mind 2 years from today, you can amend that deed. So it offers you that flexibility of understanding how your trust will function, how you're going to bring it to life, who you're going to use it for, who you will remove, who you want to add as a trustee, whether a trustee is going to function well or you yourself will function well as a trustee. All that is put in the trust deed. And of course, you must set it up with a purpose. You must have a reason you're creating this trust. Why are you setting it up? Is it for family? Is it for charitable reasons? Is it simply a private purpose? Because you can't set up a private purpose trust to protect your grave for all of eternity. And you want the trustees to always make sure your grave site has a certain flower every week or every month. You can't create a trust over that. You can create a trust virtually over anything because the law allows you to create such a trust. The types of trusts you're going to create will now cement the purpose, okay? You can have any reason to create a trust, but here we're going to stick to family trusts. Family trusts, by virtue of the Trustee Perpetual Succession Act, is defined as a trust, a legal arrangement that has been set up to preserve what is owned by a family. So the wealth of the family is preserved in the form of a trust. So you can create a family trust and then decide the type of trust it's going to be. It can be revocable, meaning it can be amended or cancelled by the settler. It can be irrevocable, meaning once it is created, no one can dismantle it, especially the settler. It can be discretionary, giving the trustees an opportunity to use their free mind to make decisions over the beneficiaries, over the assets, how to invest, whether to sell, whether to add, whether to reorganize. So you can give them some discretion in how they apply their mind. It can be fixed with a predetermined asset distribution. So meaning you've put your house, you've put your land, and you have 2 children, and you tell the trustee, when I pass away, please give the land to my daughter, please give the house to my son, and that's it. And that is predetermined, it is fixed, and no one can change that because the settler gives the rules. Or you can do it for special needs, protecting vulnerable beneficiaries. Vulnerable beneficiaries could be someone who receives Medicare perpetually, or someone who is a minor, someone who has other types of special needs that you as a settler have been catering to in their lifetime. So you can create the trust structure and give it various types. It is not limited. You can say as a settler, it is revocable. When I die, it's irrevocable. When I give the trustees discretion, but when I die, it becomes fixed. You can create a variable blend of the types of trusts for so long as you've defined the purpose of that trust and you've set it in place, because even the trust registrar themselves will require you to give them the purpose, but the type can go changing. It's as flexible as you yourself and as the person who changes their minds is. So I hope we're very clear on the basic form of the trust structure, because I'm almost at the end of my presentation. This question I have answered in my previous slide. Can I become a beneficiary of a revocable living trust? Yes. The trust is living because it comes alive with you. It comes alive as soon as you've created it. It is alive in your lifetime. It is not a testamentary trust. Testamentary is a word that is used only for wills. Wills activate testaments given by people after they have died. So the reverse of living is testamentary. So if you're creating your trust in this lifetime, in your lifetime, and you want this trust to exist tomorrow, it is a living trust. Can it be revocable? Yes. Can you retain some control? Yes. You can always say, as a settler, I would like to preserve certain rights if I'm not sitting as a trustee, because it beats purpose where the settler is a trustee and they're reserving certain rights, because the trustee has full mandate of the trust. But if you're not sitting as a trustee, it's important that you reserve certain rights to yourself. Or if you're not sitting as a trustee by yourself, because in family trusts, you can be a single trustee. In the same way, a company can have a sole shareholder, sole director. A trust can have a sole trustee, but cannot have a single beneficiary. It must have more than just the settler as a beneficiary. What about an irrevocable trust? Of course, the settler typically gives up their direct benefits. They cannot cancel that trust in their lifetime or beyond, and it's considered not their personal property as soon as it has moved into the trust, which protects you and protects your family. It is very clear to remember that when you're setting up a trust and you've defined the purpose of the trust to be a family trust, the trust should outlive you. It can serve you, but it should outlive you. Okay. And lastly, we want to see the risks. I don't want to mention any names. There are very many infamous cases of the trusts world. In the trusts world, there are very many infamous cases that have seen the light of day in court. Of course, the judges have ruled that trusts once set up by a settler should not be wound up unless it is proven financially unsound. Yeah, it cannot maintain its beneficiaries, then it can be wound up. But as long as the settler set it up, has put assets and assets are running, let the beneficiaries go inside there and figure themselves out, okay? So it protects you. It kind of dignifies your family to keep the fighting at home. Nobody enjoys seeing fights outside on the streets. You will have so many cameras looking in your direction. So a trust protects that. It allows you to fight within the corridors of your own home and maintains the fight with an umpire called a trustee. The trust itself preserves your wealth. It receives your assets and protects them in its own name. It also protects you from your creditors. Maybe you're getting into an investment partnership and you want to take a loan out with your partners. You can put your personal assets in a trust, and all those will not be considered assets in case you default from your loan. If you get into a bad deal, for instance, and someone takes you to court, they can take you to court and take everything, including the clothes on your back. But when you create a trust, you can simply leave yourself with the clothes on your back and say, I don't own anything. I don't own all this property. They belong to the trust. So the only thing that you can take are the slippers on my feet and the shirt on my back. You can simply protect yourself from those sudden downturns, okay? Of course, there are risks to disputes and challenges. You can't stop an argument, no one can, and I don't think anyone has that capacity to do that, even if you create a trust. There are economic downturns, and if your trust is based in Kenya, and we saw a question where someone asked, what if the Kenyan government collapses? I mean, I literally just responded by saying, we're all in it together. You, the trust, us, everybody, we're all in it together. It just means we'll have to figure out a way to survive as Kenyans, because we are not going to take our motherland and ship it to another country. It is ours to preserve, it's ours to protect, and it's also ours to grow. Then the biggest risk as well is the poor trustee decisions. So either the choice of trustee was poor, or the choices being made by the trustees is poor. You be the judge of that and determine whether you want a professional, you want someone who's able to manage your wealth, you want yourself to sit in as a trustee, you want to preserve that seat and have it being succeeded by a professional trustee. All that is your choice. So making a wise choice could be poor tomorrow, but today it is the wiser choice to have this, and you stick to the wiser choice. Ensuring proper trust management, and one of the questions that is here, allow me to read it, is I would like to know how to avoid the kind of mess I see in some trusts. If I left my investments to be managed by so-and-so, and the beneficiaries don't want that, what are the legal implications? Again, the king in trusts is settler. Settler creates the trust, they're the king. They're the ones who determine how the trust is going to be managed. The trust, again, will be managed by a trustee. Once the trustee has been given the crown and it's been passed on to them, they make decisions. So the way to make sure that the trustee properly governs your trust is, one, appointing someone who sees beyond themselves. They are not beneficiaries of your trust, so they see beyond themselves. Appointing them and making them impartial is very important. Conducting audits of your trust, making sure that your assets are being properly managed, people are able to receive information and reports, the trustee is easily available to the beneficiaries, is very important. Implement legal mechanisms within your trust deed. Your trust deed is the one that tells them what to do. Tell them, if you have a problem, I need you to go and sit down with person X and have that decision made. I can put in my lawyer, I can put in my financial advisor, I can put in whoever that person be as an umpire, I can put them in as an enforcer to make sure the beneficiaries toe the line as well as the trustees. I establish clear rules on how the trust will be managed, and here is where the expertise in setting up a trust comes in, where we help you see, what does a trustee do? Because we've served as a trustee and we have founded ourselves in trustee fiduciary roles, we can help you see what a trustee does, how they're supposed to do it, and how to harness it within your constitutive document of the trust deed. Then, of course, you appoint a competent person, not only independent, but you appoint someone who's competent, someone who's able to read, write, think, and imagine like you, okay, as best as they can with you. Then, of course, you ensure you review your instructions regularly. The law can change, society's perceptions can change, the assets you've put under the trust can change, the trustees themselves can change their structure and they would like to ship out. How do you regularly review the constitution that you've set up in the form of a family trust? So it's very important that as you're setting up your plan, make it a clear and intentional decision. Then you'll be able to know where to seek the guidance, how to imagine the existence of your trust and build it bit by bit. How a trust is registered in Kenya, it's a very simple process. Very, very simple. The preparation of the trust deed is where the toiling is. And the toiling is in your mind. The toiling is in the information that you have. And we mine as much data from you as possible to help you, because our goal is to make sure your trust works for you and for the people who come after you. Once we've done the preparation of the trust deed, we stamp it. It takes about a week to stamp. Then it goes for registration at the Registry of Documents, housed under the Ministry of Lands. That takes about 1 or 2 weeks. And then from there, we take it to the Trust Registry, which is housed under the Business Registration Services, popularly known as the Companies Registry. But this particular registry is the Trust Registry. They have a statutory mandate to incorporate your trust within 60 days. The name of the trust is not a reserved concept. It's simply a name that you wish to be remembered by. This is your legacy and you want it to be cemented in your family. You want the values that you've upheld to also ring forever in your trust. So you can use the name that you want, be it your name or a name that is unique to your family or unique to you as a couple, to you as a person. It doesn't stop you from incorporating a trust, because again, the trust is for preservation. That takes another 2-3 months. Statutorily, it's 60 days, but give or take, it takes about 2-3 months. And within 3 months, you're good to go. You have a certificate. You get a KRA PIN certificate as well. And you can continue investing. You transfer your assets into the trust. You start buying investments in the name of the trust. You open bank accounts in the name of the trust, so that you can also consider perpetuity. No one needs to go back and forth to get access to this bank account. The trustee is available. No one needs to go to court to get permission to get a certain distribution. The trustee has full mandate. They can continue dealing with the trust for so long as you've set the rules and you've appointed them properly. The last and not least in our game of trusts is taxes. I get this question so much. I understand that tax is a pain point. It is a pain point for all of us. But the taxes in a trust are simply like you. The only benefit that they get is there's no stamp duty or capital gains tax for the assets that are being given into the trust. And the trust itself is not considered a person for corporate income tax. That is literally the long and short of the taxes of a trust. Yes, it pays a withholding tax if it invests. Yes, it can buy tax-free bonds. Yes, it can pay dividend tax if it receives dividends from a private company or even public shares. Yes, it pays residential rental income tax. Yes, it can do investments in anything other than commercial property. And by commercial property, I mean businesses that are doing daily trade or commercial leasing, offices and such like ventures that require VAT. Because remember, it doesn't pay corporate income tax. Therefore, it cannot pay VAT. Everything else is depending on what you've put under your trust and how you want to structure the taxes and how to minimize them. So that is where we come in trying to understand the kind of assets you're placing under the trust, whether you need a special structure into your trust, and then you can discuss the taxes. But generally, a general overview: stamp duty, capital gains, corporate income tax, those are the justified exemptions that we have. The last but not least is determining who your trustee is. We've already seen you are the base and you're now giving the trustee power to hold up your trust. You get to decide. Maybe your current trustee is an individual, they are a family friend, or they are just family, they have never dealt with a trust, so they don't know what to do. Versus, do I go for professional service? Do I just ask Icea Lion Trust Company how much they charge to make sure that my assets always work for me and work for my children? You can simply get a rate card and the professional services will be rendered to you. I say professional services because there are no individuals currently in this country who offer professional services for trusts. They are only corporate trustees, and corporate trustees have been here for decades. They have been managing trusts for decades. So those professional trustees are able to sit down with you and tell you, this is how a trust runs. These are the compliance measures you need. This is the the new rules that are in place, because they also keep abreast with the rules that affect them as trustees. An individual may just simply be there to do good bidding. Maybe they are just, it's goodwill, they are being kind, but people change, circumstances change. So it's good to be on the safe side of the coin. I'm very glad that you've listened to me for the past hour or so. I'm ready to take any more questions if you feel like your question was not answered. I know there are some questions here that were more on financial instruments that can be used rather than simply estate planning. And I try to center as much on estate planning. So welcoming any questions that you may have and any kind of experiences that you would wish for us to go over. Thank you very much.
I have a question,
Thank you,
Mwalimu.
thank you so much, Winnie. We appreciate that lesson. So we can't thank you and your team enough. And I love what you and Washila is telling us. Let's talk within our families. Let's have these conversations. It is important, and I love that that we start with the conversations, because today me and my spouse wills and trust or something could be something difficult, but we could start with a conversation. And when the conversation is beyond us, we could seek an expert who can shed some light. And this is where the consultants come in. So team, your questions are most welcome. Please go ahead. Somebody's mic was on. Please go ahead with the question.
Yeah. So, so in the process of me, you're still alive, you're still buying property, and the bank name is in the name of the trust. So all the money coming in is coming into the trust and into the bank. Who is withdrawing that money, or how do I even go about accessing that money? Do I still have access of that money? Yeah, just the details around that.
So again, I want you to imagine a company where you open a bank account in the name of a company. What you'll be required to do is give signatories, right? So the signatories can only form from the directorship of that company. So lucky you, you're a sole director, sole shareholder, means only one signatory, and therefore that person signs any bank mandates because they are the sole director. In a trust, when you're opening a bank account, if you're the sole trustee, again, lucky you, you set up a bank account and you say that I am the sole signatory because I am the sole trustee. If you set up a bank account and you have co-trustees, that is where complexity is invited. You must decide who becomes the sole signatory, who forms the bank pool for us. And I want to give another illustration in the form of investment partnership groups, or chamas as they're formally known as. Most people usually carve out a few people and an odd number that says maybe 3 of us will be signatories to this bank account, and all of us are pulling our investment or our funds into that bank account. That is how you form a trust bank account. The trustees can be signatories. You get to decide, is it one trustee who's a signatory? Is it 2? If you're just 2 trustees, is it either or? Is it both of us that we must sign this? Because a trustee is simply the one who executes. They're the administrator of your trust. So when you go to the bank, they'll require that some signatures are placed, but you will be opening what the bank will call a corporate bank account, because the trust in itself is a corporate person.
Thank you, answered. I don't know if I can ask another question.
Go ahead, Usha. That's okay.
I didn't get the part where you said how much it's going to cost to open. Is it a fixed cost to open a trust, or is it dependent on your wealth? You know, like if someone has, yeah.
Okay, that's a good question. I had not mentioned that. I thought it was in the previous conversation, but setting up a trust is a one-off cost. One-off because you're going to go through a journey of advisory and consulting, as well as the technical part of setting up the trust, so the documentation. Our one-off cost is Kenya shillings 350K. It's not payable one-off, of course, because the journey, as we've seen, is not a one-day journey. It's like a 2-3 month journey. So it's payable up to 3 installments, with at least 50% being the deposit that you've set down, so that we can also begin the process of advising you. The toil of setting up a trust is in determining the trust deed itself. So that's where we will work together to make sure your thoughts have been put in as best as you want. We tailor it to how you want your trust to look, how you're envisioning it to look in 5 years, how you're envisioning it to look in 10 years, how old are your children. What we ask as many questions as possible so that you get the best value for why you've come to set up a trust. But otherwise, our fee is all inclusive, including any kind of registration fees that are available or that are charged to us at any of the government registries. Our fee is one-off. Once you've set up your trust, you can determine how now the trustees will be set up, whether you're paying the trustee, are they a corporate trustee? If you choose us, we will give you a rate card of how much we charge to sit as a trustee in your trust. It is fair and of course competitive, but at the back of our minds, we know that we are the leading trustees in private and family trusts. So the value that you're getting for sitting with a corporate trustee in your family trust is much more than what you would get sitting by yourself wondering what to do.
Thank you so much, Winnie. I don't know whether in the team we could be having another question, but as we submit the questions, also someone we know, so a gentleman is involved in an accident that should be a couple of years back. There is what the people in this business keep calling vulnerable family members. So the gentleman had a young family, the kids were young. So the insurance payout happens. This money is squandered by the spouse, unfortunately. Whatever they had been thinking of how to their family would be, whether they are there or not, was not realized. And this has been something that has been bothering me, and I believe even for our community. Majority of you have insurance policies, maybe like something life insurance policies. So whatever we are accepting is that things happen and we are out of this world, and yeah, of course. So if you had yourself your vulnerable family members, like young ones or other vulnerable family members, how would we secure their interest? And me thinking of the conversation that we are having tonight is starting from this level, where I say, well, might not be about anything else, but it might be about my kids finishing school. So can I get somebody who can probably learn this to the best interest of, because that gentleman, of course, you love your spouse and all these kind of things, but how they behave when you're not there, you're going to have to accept. I know there are people here who are with their spouses in this particular session. We have seen, I saw that even with the parents who, yeah, when they are with their kids, these kids have never touched the million plus. So when you're not here, then whatever you thought your kids would behave, how you thought your kids would behave, this is something very different. Can they be able to finish school to college and all these kind of things? For me, that is the conversation that I would want to sit down with Winnie and tell Winnie, I don't know if I'm not allowed whether my kids will take school up to college, because I would want them to take school up to college or something. So any other question? Let's hear if you have questions, kindly. The Monica, I don't know whether it is Monica or Winnie or Peter. If now part of our community want to follow up, so I'd asked that question. I want to follow up on visit and have a conversation. We would ask for guidance on how we can pursue that best. So maybe an email or something of that sort. That would be very great. So, Winnie, there is a question there for you. If you nominate an individual as a trustee and they died, and I'm also long gone, what happens to the administration of the trust?
That's a good question because it means the trust registrar will be involved. And here is where your beneficiaries need to also learn from better trustees, where information is not hidden, it's not secret. The beneficiaries can go to the registrar and require a trustee to be appointed, okay? Or they can go to court, because remember, a trust cannot operate on its own. It operates in the mandate of the trustee. So if you have passed away, and we do consider this as we are structuring your trusts, we do consider a situation where you're not there. Maybe the person that you nominate to take over from you passes away. Maybe you pass away around the same time. We do consider those situations and place them in the governance framework of your trust. But my advice would be, if you have not considered it, then the law will have to follow. It will have to follow itself. Yeah. So the registrar might require you to go to court and get a court order requiring them to appoint a trustee, or the beneficiaries can sit down, have a meeting, and choose a person and then require the registrar to appoint them as a trustee. That being said, hoping that the beneficiaries are not minors and that they have been made aware of their trust and how it operates.
There is a question by Damanis. What happens to the children when they reach the age of majority, and the trustees become elderly, incapacitated, or die?
Again, the law is not vocal about such a situation. It's your trust deed that speaks about such a situation, because you can't tell your children to sit as trustees if you're not there and they're of a certain age. Yeah. For most people, and I guess from practical experience, most people prefer that when their children are 27 to 30 years old, they feel like they'd be mature and ready to make decisions about the wealth that is being transitioned to them. And, before they're 18, they can't speak. So before they're 18, you must consider to name a guardian, and a guardian can speak for them. But after they're 18, you get to determine whether they can sit as trustees. If a trustee becomes elderly or incapacitated, again, they can go to court and say, the person who created the trust did not give us a way out of this. Please help us to find another trustee. And the court will be able to administer that. So they can get a legal representative to just make sure a trustee has been put in place. Again, no decisions can be made without a trustee. That is where a corporate trustee comes in very handy, because the corporate trustee, for so long as they exist, they must make that decision. So even if you're choosing your corporate trustee to take over and train your children to be trustees, I believe it's well worth the day and time.
Thank you so much, Winnie. Thank you. Now I think this is why we have even the CEO here. Kellen is asking if a number of us from this community that is busy are interested in setting up the trust. Can we get a negotiated rate as a group? So I think whatever we need is a note that we can give to the members of the member of BizLink, whoever is interested in doing a trust, so that we get a negotiated rate. Somebody answer that question. As there's a question there, Winnie, you can answer. In case I cannot afford a trust for now, what options do I have for my next of kin or beneficiary? And I remember I had talked with Monica in regards to this. I'm not able to put up a trust immediately. Can you please tell me how a will or something else, something of the sort can help me? Winnie?
A good question. I think when we spoke about wills, I said that they are testamentary. The will doesn't mean that I have to name you Daniel, or I have to name a person, John or Jane, to be a beneficiary in my estate. I can simply require the executors to create a trust over my assets and put my beneficiaries in that trust. A will it's a mandatory estate planning instrument. if you were not here today, or if someone you depend on today is not available tomorrow, Safaricom will not give you their M-Pesa details. Airtel Money will not give you their details. No bank will open up their accounts to you. You will have to prove that you've gone to court and got permission to do that. So the will allows them to bypass that process of who gets to do this, because you choose for them. You choose, this is the executor, this is the person I give information to do X, Y, and Z, and the court will give them permission to proceed. And they won't have to go through the roundabout manner of, do we choose this person over this person? Is the spouse able to think? Is the child mature? Are they ready to take over? All those things fall away as soon as you write your will. A will is a very simple tool. It's fairly affordable because we also charge a one-off fee of 50,000 shillings. The will can be written in a week or two for so long as you have information that we require of you to give. We sign it, we keep it safe for you. We instruct you on how to go about informing your executors. We instruct you on how to inform your banks and all your financial service providers that you do have a will in place and that they keep your information confidential, only availing it to the executors. It's a very straightforward document from my perspective, but to you, it can save you a lot of headache or save your family a lot of headache. You don't have to tell them what you're giving them. You can just give them all in unison through a trust. And now it will be their job to now find a trust advisory person who can help them set up that trust through the will.
Winnie, if I got you right, today I come to Icea Lion. I ask Winnie, get me your trust lawyer, your succession lawyer. We write a will that upon death, there is an insurance payout. Upon death, there is this money at whatever bank. And this is how I would want this money, like this is how I expect this to be executed. And I want this money given to a trust so that it is managed for the benefit of my beneficiaries or vulnerable family members. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's
Okay.
what I'm saying. And
Okay.
it can go beyond even your life insurance benefits, your retirement benefits. You don't have to name a person to receive those benefits. You can simply instruct the person paying out that I don't want these monies to be received by the individual. I want them to receive them through a trust. And they will require that a trust is created for the funds to be placed. And therefore, they will have to see a trustee in place. If there's a trust fund option, they'll have to see the trust fund in place so that they can give out that payout. So it protects you from giving maybe a minor some money, or you can give someone who will use the money for their benefit rather than for the benefit of why you've taken out such a cover. So anything can always be protected under a trust. You just need to know, what do I own and how do I make sure they all fall into a trust?
Perfect. That answers the question by Selena, who was asking whether we
Daniel,
can.
I want to add
Yes.
something small to that.
Yeah, please go ahead.
If the assets that you want to protect are financial assets, primarily financial assets, you can actually create a free trust that under our Milele Trust Fund. So you have an umbrella trust that is already established. You can set up a trust under that. There's no cost in setting up that. And that trust can actually protect, especially financial assets. And you can connect that trust as a beneficiary to your insurance benefit, as a beneficiary to your pension benefit, group life benefit if death were to happen. So that would be an option for those who probably don't have the money to set up a private trust.
Okay. Thank you
So you
so
can
much.
actually
Thank you
set
so
up
much.
that.
Thank you so much, Sam. I think some things we didn't even know. And this is good. So Selena, you are adequately guided. There is an email there. There is the contact for Monica Mashalia in the chat box. So Alice is asking, how much will ICA charge for being a trustee? I think now, apart from the setting up, so continuous, the
Yes,
fees.
yes.
Okay.
All right. All right. As Winnie said earlier, we'll give you a rate card. In most cases, the cost is dependent on the value of the estate. The bigger the estate, the cheaper it becomes because of this economies of scale. But at the maximum, it shouldn't be more than 1% of the value of the assets per annum. So that's a maximum. It can go to as low as 0.3 or 0.12% for a much bigger portfolio. But I think once we get to know the structure of the assets and all that, we should be able to guide you. But it's usually a very affordable costing rating.
Thank you so much. Winnie, this question, I think I'll push it through. How do trust funds relate or fit into a trust?
All right. Remember our analogy of the pot of gold? A trust fund is one of the gold bars in your trust. A trust is a corporate person. They can hold anything. But if you want to start and test out the waters of how a trust works and maybe how a trustee is instructed, how they hold the assets, because the trust fund that we have, Milele Trust Fund, only holds liquid assets. By liquid assets, I mean money, not cash on hand, just money, liquid assets. The money is invested for you. The money can be withdrawn at your request. The money can be used for the purpose you've set it for, as long as there are instructions received by the trustee for how these monies should be given. Yeah, so you can test out the waters, set up a free trust fund. It's easy to start a trust fund, then grow into a family trust. And why I say that is because the trust fund will hold your money and money's worth. Probably you have some life insurance payouts that you're expecting. You have some benefits that you're expecting that you want to put in a trust fund. Start out and set them up in a trust fund. But I know this for a fact. You most probably have more than just money and money's worth to put in a trust. You probably have companies that you've set up. You have land and houses that you've bought through your lifetime, and you can grow out of a trust fund into a family trust, where the family trust will now hold this trust fund and any other asset that you have individually, as a couple, as a group of siblings, as you know, there's no limit to who can set up a family trust for so long as it's for preservation of family wealth for a group of people.
Thank you so much, Winnie, for that response. Yeah, so the individuals who were asking at what point should they start? I think there is a contact there. So the connect with the trust consulting at Icea Lion. Also connect with Monica Mashalia. The contact details are there in the chat box. We'll also share with you so that you can start right away. I remember the last time we had the conversation with Kipchumba, individuals didn't have wills. So many of us, which was, I would say, dangerous. So write a will, and if there is even something free that can even help us, then the Millennium Trust for the financial assets, especially for all those financial assets that you have, I think then that would make a lot of sense. So I think there is a message that has been sent there. So as we come to the end of our session, if there is any more question to the Icea Lion team, I would gladly take it. If not, then I just allow me to, I don't know whether Winnie is still the host. Okay. This is okay. Let me. I want to reclaim the host. Good. I think we are good there. So for those members who are new to BizLink, please, we have ourselves a community here that loves to learn. Please feel free to join us and come learn alongside us. We This is Bonapita, our Sheila. We are with him at the Radisson Blue, just having this conversation. It was just more, it was more about the future, we would say. So feel free to join us. We are expecting to have a continued conversation, as I've said, that we loved learning and hearing from Peter Washila. So we are hopeful that we can always invite him, and he can always share his insights on building wealth and all these kind of things. So I want to pass my gratitude to the Icea Lion Trust for creating time to be here. It is late past their working hours, but they have availed themselves, and we also want to thank them for joining us at Radisson Blue. So we are very grateful for that. So they will just take like 2 minutes just to now past that to give a few updates. So the Monetary Policy Committee that is at CBK will be meeting tomorrow. So inflation readings came at around 3.3%, and the expectation there is they would hold the base reading rates or cut by a 0.25. So the expectation is that your savings rate and rates on fixed deposits and also rates on the government securities, the yields would continue to come down. So I believe you are accurately guided. I remember you saw the advert that was for the buyback of some 3 bonds that are maturing within the year. My guidance there was, if you are an individual investor and you are doing less than 2 million, so that would mean you are going for non-competitive bidding. This one we had warned in 2023 that the launch of the DOCSD and the push by CBK and Treasury to get more and more individual investors, it was a well orchestrated plan to bringing interest rates down. So yeah, of course, we want that as an economy, bring rates down. But on these, it would impact you, because if you go for the average rate and it is below whatever the buyback, the bonds, the buyback have, then that would mean you would be selling the bonds to CBK, back to CBK at a rate that is not good for you. So you saw that we have seen that with several bonds that they have offered in recent past, where non-competitive bidders, who are majority are individual investors like yourself, have ended up with not so good rates or something of that sort. So you are disadvantaged, not in a bad way. It is good for the economy, but you could be disadvantaged. So if you don't have the need of getting that money back, then the best guidance would be wait for it to go to maturity. But if you meet the threshold for competitive bidding that is above 2 million, then you can go for aggressive bidding. Just ask for rates above what the bills are paying. That is in relation to the individuals holding the 3 bonds that are the buyback. So they are the reopened bonds. So this is more of whether you are interested to go short term, long term, or medium term or long term. If you are going for medium term, then we are looking at 2030, 2033, going with face value of up to 1 million or less. So that is, you are now better educated. So we believe you can be able to make an informed decision. Our risks just exist to be mitigated. So the best guidance that we had given yesterday was that, if you decide to go for them, then the interest that you earn from them, you can choose to invest in other asset classes. So we believe that you are best guided. The NSE valuations at an all-time high, some justified by fundamentals, others not justified by fundamentals. It is the hype that comes with the bull markets. So you don't want to be caught into an overvalued stock that the fundamentals are not correct. So we have taught you very well on how to pursue these. This is a caution, considering that banking will be reporting, of course, banking, and then you get your self-insurance companies reporting later, and the rest of the companies are listed. So you could want look at how things turn out when these companies report. So we have said that the reporting is the real test on whether the earnings justify whatever valuations were there. So there was a practical example, I think, for BizLink. You can tell that. So over in the US, so we have an earnings season, so January and the better part of February. So around 36% of the S&P 500 listed companies have already reported, and 77 of the companies that have reported have surprise earnings. And with these, you can expect, so there was a target there that the year-on-year earning per share of now the whole index could grow by around 13.2. So this could be justifying the valuation of so the markets are a little bit overheated because the price to earning ratio of the index is at around 22. So the earnings growth could justify that. Though the next point on the tariffs and counter tariffs would hurt these, and the expectation is that you have already seen it. We'll have what we call volatility. Now, do you have a long-term perspective on investing? Because if we have volatility today and the coming 6 months or 8 months, then it would make sense for accumulation. So you have seen the index, talk of the 2000, the dot-com bubble, talk of 2008, talk of 2011, talk of 2020, the pandemic. So the interest rates, inflation around 2021, early 2022. You have seen those dips. So this is whatever we are expecting with the volatility. Now, you were wishing that when the dip was happening in 2022, you could have all 2008, all 2020, you made a few accumulation. Now, that is if you have a long-term approach to investing. So you could think of those. So the tariffs and counter tariffs, Trump is very disruptive for business. Of course, at the early stage are very disruptive. So expect volatility. But if you decide to go that area, the semiconductor industry, despite the conversation around AI and all this kind of nonsense, is that we are manufacturing very few chips for data centers to train AI and all these kind of things. Now, the number of chips towards the data centers for AI, in regards to the number of chips that are used in your vehicles, that are used in your appliances at home, the number of chips that are used in hospital equipments and all these kind of things in phones and whatever. So, the semiconductor, of course, will have volatility by itself, but it is an industry that over the long term would see growth. Now, if you're going for individual companies, you saw what was happening in 2023, 2024, a company just mentioning AI, and then we end up taking the valuation to unjustifiable levels or something. So I've said hype investing is not something that we should be doing. It is more about valuations and all these kind of things. Now, as we come to the end, mentioned that Trump and disruption. So I believe you have heard about the WHO and you said and all these kind of things. I think you said the impacting us directly. Maybe there is somebody here in the session working with an NGO that is supported by USAID or, so there will be a lot of disruptions. Now, you remember my mantra, rainy days will inevitably happen. That I don't know where this will come from. I don't know how I'll be impacted tomorrow. So it is a call for us to, you had the rich man, the rich fool that says, oh, now I've harvested, my soul sits and be glad and eat and all these kind of things. This is something that we cannot afford to do because you don't know where the source of risk could come from. Is your emergency fund adequately funded? Do you have investments that can push you or push your beneficiaries to finish school and all these kind of things? So we have learned about these emergency funds. I don't know how far you are with that. I was asking the students who had come to our January 2024 class how far they are with the goals that they had purposed to achieve. I think it is best that we're having this conversation at the start of the month of February so that you can go outside there. So tomorrow, go sit all over the weekend, have that retreat, the personal retreat that I told you about, reevaluate where you are, and where you want to go and whether you are still on course. Therefore, the individuals who responded, I feel you and I know where you are, and I understand, and we wish you the very best. So somebody was telling me I didn't hit 100%. That's okay. You did 70%. That is something instead of where a situation that I'm so vague, I'm doing too bad. I can't even tell that I'm doing too bad because I didn't have a target. So that is a good thing that you can sit down and look at the goals and retarget them. So our February personal finance class starts at 10th. That is next week. So you can refer your friends and family. The March dollar denominated class. So these upcoming, for which we'll be sharing the details through our platforms. So you can, those individuals who are planning to pursue that, you can consider that. So that should be it from me. I want to thank you all, unless there is a question. Yeah, I don't think there is any other question. So please, the chat box is available, the recording is available, so anybody is available to access that, and we'll share the details for Icea Lion. That is the contact emails and the website, the link that has been shared by Winnie. Thank you, the team from Icea Lion, for making time to come to our session. And we want to also to thank Winnie for the beautiful presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you to the community of BizLink for making time to come here, and also for bringing your friends. Winnie, closing remark.
Thank you very much for listening to me today, this evening. It's been a wonderful engagement. I enjoyed the questions. I enjoyed your leadership, Daniel, and I'm grateful that my colleagues, and especially my bosses here, Peter and Monica, they have sat through the entire presentation. I am happy to receive your feedback, questions anytime. If you want to invite us again, we'd be happy to coach you through this. Individual one-on-one coaching is also available, where you want to just sit down and understand how estate planning and your thoughts meet. And yes, so you're welcome to Icea Lion Trust Company anytime. I'm not going to say any time of the day. We do make exceptions, but yes, call us, call Monica, set up an appointment, and we are very ready, able, and willing to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Monica, closing remark.
So thank you everyone for listening through. I'm ready. I'm here. I will be your consultant for the team, for the BizLink team. So Daniel, feel free to share my contact, my email address with your team members. I'll be happy to guide you through the entire process, from setting up the free trust, the trust funds, all the way to setting up the trust, the family trust. Have a very beautiful good evening and a good night. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monica. Mr. Peter Washila, please, they have the honors to give us the closing remark.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Always a pleasure to meet with this community. I think you're doing a fantastic job. There's a question that you asked me there on, on whether we can consider, I think if you have a sizable team, we can probably extend a small discount. And possibly you can help us organize that. We can extend that courtesy. Normally we don't, but we can extend that courtesy to this community because we believe that what we are doing is really useful for the families. But thank you very much for inviting us and for the community listening to us. We are happy to continue engaging. So if you have further questions, do not hold back. Reach out to us. We'll be able to share the knowledge with you. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Nyokabi Jogona, please have the honors to thank the team at Icea and also wish us a good night. Nyokabi, I know I have. Nyokabi, I don't know whether she's there. 1, 2, 3. If not, then Usha, please feel free to give us a closing remark.
As usual, we are totally grateful for this opportunity. Thank you for inviting the Icea Learn team. Thank you for creating time for us. The BizLinks community is happy, always ready for education, always willing to learn. Tunashukuru tu sana, and we look forward to having more of these sessions. Asante.
Thank you so much. So with that, we are free now. I want to wish you all a wonderful night and all the best to work tomorrow, and also the very best with your investment journeys. Good night, everyone.
Thank you and have a good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.